Hello everyone, and welcome to the political show, The Power of Unity, Jakov's Vision. I'm your host, Jakov. I have planned that this show will start in the first week of January 2026, but I have planned that the first episode would be a little bit different, and then the situation in Venezuela happened. So, I have decided to change the plan and, adapt. And so today we will talk about the situation in Venezuela. I think you will understand how I see the world and why I think that some of the rules in our rules-based world don't actually apply, and why we need new rules and new laws. All right, so let's start with what happened. A few days ago, Donald Trump, as the president of the United States, has ordered the arrest or invasion, or I don't know how to call it, into Venezuela so that they can capture the dictator, Maduro. There is a law that says that, you should not capture foreign leaders, right? That's the law. But there is another thing that we need to understand in regards to this. Maduro was illegitimate leader of Venezuela. Even the European Union has declared that he has stayed in power thanks to the use of force, and that he has lost the election, and as such that he is not actual leader of the country. And if we consider that to be true, then he should not be afforded the same, privileges that state leaders have. And what are those privileges? State leaders have a certain amount of immunity when it comes to even military conflict. So even if there's a war, you should not kill the leader of the opposite country, right? That's what the law says, at least. But the fact is that that's not really true. Let's go to the United Nations chapter, because people talk about the laws and all of that. And this is the Article 39 that says, and I quote, "The Security Council shall determine the existence of any threat to the peace, breach of peace, or act of aggression, and shall make recommendations or decide what measures shall be taken in accordance with the Articles 41 and 42 to maintain and or restore international peace and security." Now let's see what the Article 42 says. The Article 41 is about the different measures that are not militaristic, but some kind of sanctions and stuff like that. Okay. The 42, however, is about military. And it says, and I quote, "Should the Security Council consider the measures provided for in Article 41 would be inadequate or have proven to be inadequate, it may take such action by air, sea, or land forces as might be necessary to maintain or restore international peace and security. Such action may include demonstrations, blockade, and other operations by air, sea, or land forces of members of United Nations." But then this is not about General Assembly. This is about UN Security Council. And if you know about UN Security Council, you probably know that there are 5 countries that have veto. And if your country is a friend or your regime is a friend of any of those 5 countries, they'll use veto, and therefore there will be no Article 42 for you. Well, Maduro's regime should have been toppled already. Not by the United States, by the coalition of member states. But that could not happen because he is friends with Russia and China, etc. So they will use the veto, and so there would be no intervention. This essentially makes the Article 42 completely null and void, because and even the Article 39, because it makes the UN Security Council completely useless. And in absence of the UN Security Council, well, the powerful countries will do their thing. Because, again, nobody can stop them because they can veto any resolutions against themselves. Now let's go further and talk about the dictators and dictatorships. Currently in the world, there are a few dictatorships, and, well, that's very bad for the people living in those countries, who are essentially not protected by United Nations or the rest of humanity. They are essentially considered to be lesser human beings. Why say this? Well, because if their government can do whatever they want to them without any consequences on the international scale, then what's left for them to do is to try to protest against that government. But those governments, knowing that nobody can touch them, will kill them on the protests, which is what happened in Venezuela, where people were literally, and I'll show you in the video too, people were literally run down by the military or police or whatever those are, in the armored vehicles. They're literally run down by them while protesting in 2019. And the whole world just watched silently because the world has no police, obviously. Is that right? No, absolutely not. So, in the absence of the actual police that would be able to police the governments and protect the people, a certain country will declare themselves to be a police. Because, well, nobody's doing that, and world really need it. So, what happens is that USA has declared themselves to be a police. Now, that's just one example. You have another example in China, where in Tiananmen Square, people were killed by the thousands. Some estimates say 3,000. Some estimates says that there were even 10,000 people killed during the protest. So, people have no right to actually protest, no ability to protest, because the state will use military power against them. They cannot expect international help. So they can only endure. But is that right? Do those people don't have human rights? So, a few years ago, in the year 2005, there has been the forum or the, let's say, World Summit, and they have adopted the resolution on September 16, 2005. They have adopted the resolution 60-1 of 2005. Within this resolution, there is something called responsibility to protect. What this means is that human rights need to be protected, and that if a country has issues with that, they can get help from other countries. But if a country intentionally infringes on human rights and do not want to at least try to protect them, there is the responsibility to react by the other countries, where they can actually do something about it. So let me read one passage of that. When preventive measures fail to resolve or contain the situation, or when a state is unable or unwilling to redress the situation, then coercive measures by other members of the broader community of states may be required. In the light of the risks involved, coercive measures have never been the favored tool for implementing the responsibility to protect. Such coercive measures of reaction may include political, economic, or judicial measures. And in extreme cases, they might also include military action. Because human rights are non-negotiable. They are essential for all humans on Earth. And they should be universal. That's what it says. It says Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They should be universal, not depend on the country where you live in. Okay, so when you look at all of this, you might say, oh, well, that means that USA did the right thing. They did completely legal thing. They have went into another country. They took down the illegitimate leader, and that's it. First of all, USA for this kind of measures need the Congress approval. This action didn't get it. So there's that. So internally within USA, this is illegal. Now, externally, it's also illegal. Why? Well, because the UN Charter has not been updated. And so we still have the certain provisions in it that pretty much tell people and countries, no, you cannot invade other countries. Even though we know they do. They can and they do. It's illegal, but if you're friends with someone in Security Council, nothing can happen because no measures can be taken against you. Now, how I see what happened in Venezuela. Nicolás Maduro was a dictator. No questions about it. People in Venezuela tried and succeeded. Some say they did, some say they didn't. But they tried to defeat him in the elections. And some reports say that the opposition leader did win the election. But Maduro didn't recognize those results, and as such, he has stayed in power illegitimately, through force, of course. So, what's left to do? To go to a civil war? To try and topple your own president with your own bare hands? Because, let's be honest, people in Venezuela, they might have some weapons, but those are pretty rudimentary weapons compared to the weapons that the military of Venezuela has. Right. So, many people would die. Maybe they would succeed, but many people would die. This way, it was done, well, with very small amount of dead people, compared to what would happen if they would try to do that by themselves. In my eyes, this makes this operation not just successful, but acceptable if we look at the human life price of not doing it and having the civil war, and doing it and taking him out. So, it is extremely important for all of us to understand that sometimes what is legal is wrong or outdated, and that we need new laws. But until we have them, sometimes we have to resort to less legal means to achieve the right things. Removing Maduro from power was the right thing to do. Doing it militarily was the only way to do it. Now, why did the USA did it? Of course, they have their own other interests, oil and stuff. But that doesn't affect human population that much. The reserves of Venezuela, their oil and all of that, have already been looted by Russia, China, and other countries. So it's not that big of a difference to the average person in Venezuela. What is the difference, however, is what happens now. That's true. That is true. And that is something we need to talk about. We need to help Venezuela restore democracy. We should not allow USA to essentially occupy or colonize Venezuela. But we should not let the person who was appointed by the Maduro as his vice president be the president. That's also unacceptable, because the idea was to remove the dictatorship. And this is a message to the world by the USA. that no, dictators are not safe. And I'm sad that USA is standing by themselves in this message. Because we, as humanity, need to unite around our shared values. And those shared values are our human rights. And we need to understand that the attacks against human rights are not attacks that concern only one country, but are actually attacks against the humanity itself. And if it is the attack against humanity of itself, then we as the humanity and the international community need to have a mechanism to topple regimes that do not respect human rights. There should be a way to handle it. There should not be one country policing the world. We need a better police. But we do need a police. World needs a babysitter. World needs a police. So, let's make sure that we have right kind of police and just police. Otherwise, there'll be nothing to stop strong to bully the weak, including countries. So, strong are the governments, the weak are the people. They can bully them because nothing can happen to them. But then, a strong country can also bully a weaker country, you know? If there's no consequence. And currently, there's no consequence, even though in the UN Charter, it's there, that there should be consequences for such actions. But because it's not General Assembly, but UN Security Council, there's that veto that paralyzes everything. We need a better system, and that is true. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be more than happy to see you in my next video. And have a nice day. I'm Jakov, and this was The Power of Unity.